horology, and that is the science of measuring time or creating an instrument. So using the word would be a sundial was one of the first methods of creating an instrument for horology, measuring time. The rest of my job will be to keep track of who uses that word and to count the number of ahs, ums, you knows, any filler words that we all use. I will stop counting at 5. So if we have more than 5, it'll be listed that way. But I don't think that's going to be a big problem. In fact, I just said but, so that's going to go against my name here. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, Mr. Timer. Grammarian. And now we'll introduce Gail as our timer.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. As timer, I time the speeches, the table topics, and the speech evaluations. The time of today's speeches and the typical speeches is 5 to 7 minutes. The green light goes on at 5 minutes. The yellow light goes on at 6 minutes. And the red light goes on, well, I don't know why red is showing up as white, but it goes on at 7 minutes and stays on for the remainder of the speech. For table topics, the timing is 1 to 2 minutes. Actually, you get a half a minute grace period if you're in a contest. The green light goes on at 1 minute. The yellow light goes on at 1.5 minutes. And the red light goes on at 2 minutes and remains on for the duration of the table topic. For the speech evaluations, the timing is 2 to 3 minutes. The green light goes on at 2 minutes. The yellow light goes on at 2.5 minutes. And the red light goes on at 3 minutes, and you would have 30 seconds to wrap it up. In fact, on all the speeches, table topics, and the evaluations, you get an extra 30 seconds. If
Thank you, Gail.
You're welcome.
Gail, you may not have a meeting agenda. Just want to inform you that part of our evaluations, we do a 3-minute evaluation, like you mentioned, and then we do 4 minutes of a group evaluation. Sometimes we refer to it as a round robin. So we've allotted 7 minutes on the agenda per evaluator for 3 minutes and then 4 minutes. For the group.
Okay, what's the 3 minutes are the evaluations, I know, but what's the 3 minutes for each person?
3 minutes is for the evaluation. Then we would have you time an additional 4 minutes separately for the group evaluation. So maybe give us a green card at 3 minutes, yellow at 3.5, and red at 4 on the group evaluation after the evaluator.
Okay, gotcha.
Right? Great,
Gotcha.
thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for explaining your role.
You're welcome.
So I'd like to remind everyone to please go on mute as I introduce our first speaker, Kelly. Kelly has been a Toastmaster for a number of years and earned her DTM. I know Kelly from a previous club, and coincidentally, she showed up on Advanced Toastmasters Online, and we knew each other because I'm not the one who introduced her. So isn't that so cool? And Kelly has studied with Tony Robbins in the past and is a fascinating person and always has incredibly brilliant things to share with us. I really look forward to her speech today. The title of her speech is "What Would You Do?" and the time is 5 to 7 minutes. Please join me in welcoming distinguished Toastmaster Kelly McCormick.
Thank you so much, Lori, Madam Toastmaster. I always feel very welcomed. So I have a question for you. If you had a chance to deepen your forgiveness, your service, and your courage in one weekend, would you take it? I'm going to go back a little bit because horology is one of my studies in my life. I want to take you back to a moment when I was living on the West Coast for about 3 months. And I was about to come back home to the East Coast and drive. My drive was probably going to take 2 or 3 days, were it not for this circumstance. I sat on the west side of Oklahoma in a McDonald's, drinking my coffee, reading the newspaper. This is maybe 9, 10 o'clock in the morning. What did I see in that newspaper? They were having a powwow starting that afternoon on the other side of Oklahoma. Now, I didn't have a time that I had to get home, so that fortune was with me. But I did look at the Sack and Fox powwow that was going to happen the entire weekend. And I thought, what's the worst thing that could happen? Let me go to the powwow this afternoon and just see. So I drove all afternoon, got to the other side of Oklahoma. Finally, I sat there in front of the people who were putting this on. And I said, listen, I just saw this in the newspaper this morning. Is it okay if I come to your powwow? Would I be welcome to do that? And the ladies in front of me said, yes, but go stay out in the woods over by the tree line there. And I said, okay, that would be great. Thank you very much for welcoming me. And then they said, stop. And they brought me into a gentleman who was a good bit older than them. And they said, our father wants to talk to you. So I just met John McClelland. And John McClelland was a very stately man. Like, you could tell he'd been chief-like in the way that he'd lived his life. And I talked with John McClelland for a few minutes, and he said, okay, you're staying with us. And I had a tent that was so small that it could go underneath the hitch of the RV that I was standing in. And they laughed at me. So he said, you will stay with my daughter, who had this huge tent that had 2 rooms in it. So I could have fit my tent in one of those rooms. Well, this was the first honor, obviously. Now, I'm glad I wasn't educated enough to know how much of a big deal this was, because quite frankly, I probably would have buckled under the pressure of what experiences this set of groups of people have had in America throughout our history and before. So because I didn't have that, I went ahead and went with the experience. I was able to go on not just staying in the tent with one of the daughters, but we went out on a truck and served the people, the 2,500 people who had come to this powwow. We served them by giving them the big chunk of meat and starting to take care of them so that the entire weekend could be taken care of for them as part of this powwow. That night, I went to one of the most honored experiences that I was the only person who wasn't a Native American. I don't know why they let me come with them, but all of us women were dancing around the fire on the inside, while all the men were dancing the opposite direction in a circle on the outside. And this is what they always did when they would go to war. The women would cry out in their song, and you could hear the pain in their voices as they were saying goodbye to their men who were going off to war. And the men would cry out back to them, and this is how they would actually leave each other in past generations. And I had the opportunity to be there. I wanted to run, but instead of running, at this point, I learned service and I learned humility. The next day, there were all the competitions of dance, and the powwow just went on. And I had the opportunity to find out that the man that said I could stay with him and his family was the senior man. This is the man who would put on the entire event. Like, he was the chief of what was going on at that point. And I realized what an honor this was. And in my heart, I could only cry for how much forgiveness must have existed for this man to just let me sit there and be with this experience that I was in. The whole weekend went through, and I'm 48 hours into this. When I finally looked at the experience, I saw how much courage each one of these members had to continue with their culture, to continue with the rituals that they were used to having, to experience life the way that generations ago would have experienced it, but then to open up the door to somebody who may not have looked like them or had the same background. I don't know what made me sit there and drink coffee in a McDonald's on that morning, but I have a question for you. If you had a chance to deepen your forgiveness, your service, your courage, learn more humility over one weekend, would you take it? Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you so much, Kelly, for a very inspiring speech. I've done some things with Native Americans before, but never attended a powwow. Our next speaker is Doug. Just see. Doug's project is the first project in level 3 in the strategic relationships path. The objectives of this project are to understand the importance of networking, attend a networking event, and give a speech on that experience. The title of his speech is Virtual Personal Network, and the time is 5 to 7 minutes. Please join me in welcoming distinguished Toastmaster Doug Thiessen.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster, and greetings, fellow Toastmasters. I think we all know the importance of networking, the ability to meet new people, interact at events, and expand our personal network so that we are able to provide service to other people who might contact us with requests for our own abilities, as well as finding people that could potentially help out in certain cases with what our needs are. And there are some great networking events that people can attend, which for Toastmasters has plenty of networking events. I mean, there's contests, there's district conferences. You can attend the World Convention, which is an amazing event. It's an opportunity to shake hands with new people, discover people from around the world, interact. At certain events, there are booths where people are actually there to sell their own wares and services. And I remember at the International Convention last year, Gail and I ran into Kelly at her booth. So live events are a great opportunity for meeting people, networking, and interacting. And one of the things that I hadn't really thought about when I've attended events before is that there are actually strategies that you can use for networking. Think about in advance what type of people you might want to meet, what type of skills would add to your own network to fill in gaps that you might need. How many business cards do you want to hand out? This is a great strategy. You can go in saying, I'm going to hand out at least 10 of my own business cards and collect possibly the same number or more. However, nowadays, it's much more difficult to find live in-person networking events because we don't have that contact as much anymore, not in the current state of affairs. Instead, we get to do Zoom, virtual networking. And there are definitely pros and cons to networking over the internet. And I attended the last district conference for our district here in Cleveland, in Northeast Ohio, over Zoom. And certainly you can meet lots of people or see lots of people. It's easy to attend. You don't really even have to travel because through the internet and through your own computer, you could sit at Starbucks anywhere you want, or you could sit at your own desk, at your own home, or your own RV, wherever you want to be. And you can still network with people all over the world. And it's easy to share links and texts because there's the chat box. And when you're talking in person, if I give you my website, well, it's pretty easy to forget if I just told it to you. Although fortunately, if I could give you my business card, hopefully my website's on that. But through Zoom, I can just copy, or I can just type that link, and you could possibly even look at it immediately. Now that leads also to some of the cons of networking through Zoom. One is distractions. Yes, it's very easy to follow the link I've just put in the chat box and look at my website. But if you're looking at my website while I'm trying to tell you what I'm doing, you're not really listening to me, or vice versa. It's very easy for me, while you're introducing yourself or telling me something, to be looking at a website, looking at email, and then I'm not really listening. How much of a connection are we really making there? It's hard to say. Another distraction is that there can be visitors to the networking event that don't really belong. I think pretty much everybody here has seen times when our Toastmasters meeting has been visited by my cat. And this is not really that conducive, although you get to meet my cat, which is nice. But the other thing that is really a problem when it comes to networking over an environment like Zoom is that it's just too public. Yes, there's a lot of people there, but one of the great things about networking in person is that you can actually stop and talk to people one-to-one, face-to-face. When you're dealing with Zoom, unless you're the host and can create breakout rooms, you're not talking to one person at a time. You've got the entire room of people, which in a big event could be hundreds. And you can't really talk to one person at a time. Everyone can hear you. That part's easy. Everyone can hear you the same. But if you want to talk to one person, you're still kind of yelling at the entire room. And everyone sort of can hear your conversation, unless everyone's trying to have a conversation at the same time, at which point it's just this wall of noise that doesn't help anybody. So overall, it's possible to network in the virtual world. And while we have to, we can get it done. But it's definitely much better to be able to network in person, talk to people face to face. And so I definitely would like to go back to having conventions and conferences and other networking events that are live and in person. It's more fun, it's more interesting, and I think it's more productive. And as for my objective of trying to hand out business cards at the last networking event, which was the district conference, I didn't manage to give anybody my card at all, at least not physically. I could type my phone number in for some people. But in the end, because I said I was going to hand out a business card, I did give one to my cat. Back to you.
Thank you, Doug. Love that creativity about giving a business card to your cat. I'm so glad I had taken myself off mute early enough for you to at least hear me laugh. Because on Zoom, sometimes we cannot hear, not sometimes, we can't hear audience response since we're all muted. Loved your speech about networking. Thank you. We're now ready to move into the next section of our meeting, which is table topics. And to lead us in that, we're giving Doug a moment to catch his breath on giving his speech, because Doug is serving as our topics master today and agreed to take on that role in the last minute. Thank you, Doug.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. Good afternoon, or whatever time it is, once again. Today, we're going to be having a bit of fun with a different kind of table topics that I call the never beginning story table topics. I think we've all sort of played to the table topics of the never ending story, where I, as topics master, would start a story and then call upon someone to continue from there. And then the next person continues from where the previous one left off. Well, in this case, horology is not going to be terribly possible because we're working at it backwards. I'm going to present very briefly the end of the story. And then I'm going to call upon someone who is going to continue the story and provide the previous 2 minutes of the story. Your challenge is to end up your topic where I began, or where the previous speaker began their topic, so that if we replayed it all backwards, it would make one continuous story. It's challenging, but we're advanced Toastmasters, and I've definitely seen this as a lot of fun. So I'm going to end our story very briefly. She rounded the corner and saw the finish line ahead. To her surprise and delight, she won the race. Who would like to continue our story from there? Kelly, you are a speaker. I will come to you if we have the time, but perhaps maybe Rick or Dawn would like to take part.
Sure, I can do
Rick.
that. This is a little bit more of a challenge. Thank you so very much, Mr. Topics Master. It was 3 months before the marathon. And my wife decided that she was going to run the marathon. She was going to work out on a daily basis, maybe 2 or 3 times a day. It started off with a 15-minute walk, then a 30-minute walk, then a run, then an hour, and kept going over and over, more and more every day, growing, getting in good shape, and getting those legs every night coming home. My legs hurt. I need you to rub my legs for me. Fill the jacuzzi. Let's really relax and get some calming down on the nerves. But never gave up. Kept going and going and going. Till finally it was the day of the marathon. She qualified. Amazing. Had a number, 173. Pinned it on her shirt, and the gun shot off and she went running for the marathon. Started at a slow pace as to not overdo it. Kept going a little bit more and a little bit more, and got that energy and that adrenaline to start going really fast. Then, when it was close to time that most people would be done, there she was, in view of the finish line, coming closer and closer and closer. As she rounded the corner towards the finish line in view, crossed the finish line to the applause of all her friends and family that welcomed her with open arms. Mr. Topics Master.
Thank you, Rick. Nicely done in continuing our story. So now our next speaker gets to continue the story and tell us how we got to 3 months before the race, where the wife said, yes, she was going to run the marathon. Dawn, would you like to continue?
I can. I'm going to be doing an evaluation, so just in case you wanted to pick Gail or someone else, but I can do this. So before Lori decided, because we are talking about Lori here, before Lori decided that she was going to do the marathon, she had no clue that this was on her plate. This wasn't even on her radar at this time. Maybe when she was younger, because she's doing this at this time in life. But the reason she decided to do this was because she heard her little grandbaby, I'm not sure which one you have, say something about, oh, Grandma, I wish you could run with me. And that's all it took, was a little seed planted by a little mouth with a little voice. And she started not to take it seriously, but she heard it. And she went to sleep at night and she said, I wonder if I can. I wonder what it would be like if I ran a marathon. And then she started to get excited. Wouldn't that be an awesome way to leave a legacy for my children, my grandchildren, that says, I can run a marathon? Maybe I will start one little tiny step at a time and just see where I go. Back to you, Mr. Table Topics Master.
Thank you, Dawn, for giving us a nice continuation to the earlier portion of our story. I realized too late, this system works great when you have lots of people able to build on the story, but we only have an hour of time total, and we need to move forward to the evaluation sections of the meeting, especially with our round robin evaluations. So I think that our story is actually going to have to begin here. And I will turn our screen back to our Toastmaster. Thank you for playing.
Thank you so much, Doug. I have never done a table topic like that with a story in reverse order. It was very challenging and intriguing. And I'm so glad we ran out of time and I got off the hook.
Yeah, I just created this idea a couple of weeks ago.
That was lots of fun. Now we're ready to move into our third segment of the meeting, evaluations. This is my treasured section. Gail, for your benefit, I usually call evaluations the hidden gem of Toastmasters because we learn the art of giving feedback. To lead us in this will be Dawn, serving as our general evaluator today. Dawn.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. We are going to go straight into our evaluation portion today, and evaluating our first speaker is, oh, not Trisha. Who did you say was evaluating our first speaker? Lori, did you? Sorry, I must have missed it.
That's my mistake that I didn't notice to find a replacement for Trisha. So maybe if no one did an evaluation, we can just do a group evaluation for Kelly.
I think that would be great. And I will start it off as general evaluator, and because I took lots of notes, so I will start that. I would like to start off with just a quick thank you for sharing this story, Kelly. And for all of us, I'm trying to reorient myself into that third person. I appreciate Kelly for sharing this story. And I could feel within the story that there was a very powerful emotional something that was in here for all of us. And that was beautiful. I loved being a part of that. I liked the organization. I liked how the story was told. My only real question that I had as I was listening to the speech was, I was trying to figure out, like, so when the mind goes into trying to figure out an unsolvable problem, it's like I was really trying to figure out where the forgiveness piece was. I mean, I heard you saying it, but I couldn't make the connection. So that for me was like, where was that going? And I almost felt like you weren't saying it. There was something that was unsaid. Our speaker was not saying it. It's really hard for me to do that. And other than that, I thought it was a great speech. It was full of full of possibilities and mystery and wonder and wisdom. And with that, I'm going to open it up to our round robin piece. So who would like to add some just feedback for Kelly on this? Lori.
I also really enjoyed Kelly's speech. I loved hearing the details that she shared about her experience of being not only attending a powwow, but the honor that she felt to be the only non-Native American having that experience. One of the things I noticed that Kelly did really well in her speech, it's really challenging when we're sitting delivering our speeches and all we have is our little rectangle that we're showing the world when we're delivering a speech. Kelly had so many hand gestures, her facial expressions, the movement of her upper body, and her hand gestures were so rich and varied. I thought she did an amazing job with hand gestures, and that we can all learn from Kelly on that. One thing I was thinking about in terms of a suggestion for improvement, I kind of had heard the term powwow before, but I didn't really know what it was. And I felt like it took 2/3 into the speech for me to really understand what a powwow is. And I thought it would be useful for Kelly to just spend even 30 seconds in the beginning of her speech, 30 seconds to a minute, just defining or explaining what a powwow is, and then going into the story so that we can frame it and put it in perspective and know what kind of experience she's talking about. So I think that would, if she were ever to deliver that speech again, I think that it would bring it up a notch. But overall, I enjoyed Kelly's speech so much and learned more about what a powwow experience is. Back to you, Madam General Evaluator.
Thank you. Timer, do we still have time for continued more round robin piece here? I think we should.
We're doing up to 7 minutes, so yes.
Yeah. Okay. Rick, you had some feedback?
Yes, I did. I absolutely loved Kelly's speech. It was very, very moving. I have attended a powwow, and when Lori said she never did, I was thinking, yeah, but no, it was before I met her. The one thing that I think about the powwow, talking about how that was, I showed up and asked, can I stay, was really interesting. But I think if there was a way of presenting the energy that was within the powwow. I remember when I went to a powwow, it was almost mind-blowing, the positive energy that the Native Americans had around this event. So somehow mentioning how that was almost blew you away, because I'm sure it did, and being of service to the people, which was a beautiful thing to say, how that was so meaningful. So tying that in together, I think would have made a little bit stronger speech. I loved it. I thought the speech was great. I'd love to hear it again, just so I could listen to it without having to analyze in my head what is she saying, because it had so much meaning to it. My personal thoughts are, I missed that experience when I went. I didn't ask, could I take part in this? Beautiful job. Thank you so much for presenting such a nice speech, Madam General Evaluator.
Thank you. And Gail, would you like to add, we've got a couple more seconds. Would you like to add something to Kelly's evaluation?
You're muted, Gail.
Okay, I noticed that the transition from hearing powwow to finding out about it, what it really was, I thought it was interesting, and I thought it added a surprise to what a powwow, about what a powwow was. And I'm sitting there thinking, okay, she's going to go to a seminar. You know, I looked at it as a weekend seminar. And then I was surprised to find out that it was actually a real powwow. And I found out what a real powwow was. So I like that aspect because of that, because it left me thinking one thing, and then it added a surprise element to find out, oh, it's a real powwow, not just a seminar. So good job.
Thank you. And as our Toastmaster reminded me, we do have a little bit more time. So if there is any other feedback that somebody would like to give Kelly, Doug?
I'll just add, I really enjoyed this story, although I got to admit, I didn't pay enough attention to provide any feedback because my speech was coming up and I was focused more on it. But I do have one question. Did they serve Kung Pao Wow chicken? Sorry.
Grown.
That's where the forgiveness comes in, Lori.
I definitely enjoyed this speech. It was good. It was
Okay,
nice
thank
story.
you. Thank you, everyone, for the round robin. And at this time, I'm going to go straight into evaluation of Doug's speech. And I will just start with that. And so can our timer begin? I really thought Doug's speech was very good. I could kind of understand there was some passion there to Doug's sharing some information about networking, and also from what I could gather, it was a journey, because I was a little unclear about where the journey was from the old way of doing networking to kind of like the new way. And I also felt that there was some sprinkling in of some learning elements. So there were times when I felt like, well, did you know that before? I thought Doug had said that he just learned some skills, some networking skills. So as he's talking about learning those, I also felt at the same time that he obviously has known these for many, many years. So I heard the word learning, and then there was a gap there for me. However, I really appreciated my favorite thing about Doug's speech is always are his hand gestures. There are so many of them, and you really do a great job. And I would love to help Doug elevate this, and all of us elevate our ability to use hand gestures by remembering to keep them in frame. It's so hard to talk about the bigness of something when you're like, this is how big it is. But like when you're on the screen, it's like, it's so big. It's mind blowing, but like, there you go. And then the mind is like, but it's only this big. If you go off of that, it's not even, we don't feel the bigness of it. So it's a journey, right? Journey of using our hand gestures, but you do it really well. And there's a lot of places that you use hand gestures naturally. You must kind of be Italian in your way of speaking. And I loved how you ended it with this humor. It took me by surprise. It was interesting. It was just one of those like comic relief moments that you gave your business card to your cat. And we could still laugh about it. It was really funny. And I like the way you took us through a journey of what's possible in networking virtually. And the cons specifically were helpful. So when we go into networking, and if we're holding the space for networking as leaders, then we know some of the things that are a challenge for networking. How do we create the space for networking when we're leading a group virtually? How do we do that? And how do we create breakout rooms, or just some other things? And maybe in addition to the humor at the end for Doug's speech, I might have liked a call to action somehow there that would help us then connect to how can we up level our virtual networking, or how can we do something different. That was it. So thank you, Timer. And now we'll open it for the round robin. I only talked about a little. So Lori.
Mhm. Thank you, Madam General Evaluator. I really enjoyed Doug's speech. I noticed, in addition to good use of gestures, that he had this really nice vocal variety in his speech, in the way that he changed up his voice. Also, I'm going to remember for sure, well, I'm going to remember that since I cannot hug my grandchildren right now, maybe I will hug Mazel on video with my grandchildren in lieu of being able to hug my grandkids. What a great idea to use our pet. I mean, I suppose I could hug Rick, but I think it would be funnier and more enjoyable for the grandchildren for me to hug our dog. So thank you for that tip, Doug. One suggestion I have for Doug. So while I thought that he had good vocal variety in the speech overall, I did notice that in the beginning, in his opening, maybe the first minute or two, he had this kind of sing-song voice. Not sure he's aware that he was doing that. This sing-song voice of describing the story to us. And I think it would be better to deliver it without a sing-song voice. So I hope he understands what I mean. And if he doesn't, I can explain it to him privately. So that would be something to pay attention to. I don't think I can demonstrate it. But overall, really enjoyed the speech. And when we give speeches, we want our audience to remember what we said or having a lasting impression. And hugging Mazel in lieu of the grandchildren will be my lasting impression. Back to you, Madam General Evaluator.
Thank you, Lori.
Or evaluator, really.
Yeah. And I see, oh, Kelly, you have yours off. So would you like to go ahead?
Sure. So I thought it was a great speech. One of the things that I love about that is when we're looking at a how-to, like a networking, it can be very boring and very listy. And what I like about what Doug did was he took it from a very boring, very listy kind of thing and brought a story around it, right down to the human element of the bummer of going from the physical three-dimensional experience that we can have one-on-one with each other to look at all 100 little blocks in front of me. And if I can just yell enough and hear you one-on-one, you know, he really brought to the speech the ability to experience and kind of emote through what it's like to have changed the networking from where we were to where we are. And it's not always that the listy ways of looking at a how-to will bring out that human experience. So well done.
You're muted, Don.
Oh, Gail, did I see your microphone unmuted? And would you like to give Doug some feedback for his speech?
Sure.
Yeah.
Doug, I really liked your speech. What stood out to me was the organization. That was really where you divided. First, you talked about regular networking as people would think of it in person, and then you transition into what we have to do today, the virtual networking, and you divided that into the pros and the cons. And then I liked your conclusion where you compared the two and said you'd rather have it in person. And I definitely like the giving Boo your business card. That's great. And that's all I have to say. So good job, Doug.
Thank you. Thanks, Doug. Anyone else? We have probably 30 seconds, so maybe not.
At 4:30.
Okay. Just because I think we do have maybe a couple minutes within. Did anyone else have any
Oh.
final words? Nope. Oh, I'm getting the notice from our Toastmaster. We do not have more time. So at this time, I will go into just a quick general evaluation of the meeting. We started on time miraculously, or maybe 1 or 2 minutes afterwards, but it was really close. I am not a horologist. What the heck was the word? I don't even know what the word was, but I am not that. A master of time or scientific professional of time management or anything. So in that, I feel that it could have been, I could have shown up earlier to help that move along a little smoother. It's still so hard for me as a Toastmaster, as a DTM, to be an evaluator who speaks in the third person. So I super appreciate this club as like helping me work out that kink. It is a big freaking kink. It's not easy for me to do that. So I appreciate that we all do that. The evaluators, all of them were really good, except because they were me. And that's the biggest piece of improvement that I have for myself. I'm always looking for Lori as the master of evaluations to help me keep on track. So I appreciate that as far as the club goes. At this time, I think I'm just going to let Lori finish up with, you want me to ask for the timer?
reports.
Okay. Could we get the timer report? Well, let's unmute you, Gail. Oops.
Okay.
There we
I
go.
will give my horology report now.
Okay, yay.
Okay. Toastmaster Kelly, your speech was 5 minutes and 55 seconds, so right in the 5 to 7 minute range. Toastmaster Doug Thiessen, yours was 7 minutes and 6 seconds, so that's fine, because in the contest you'd have up to 7.5 minutes. So that's good. For table topics, Toastmaster Weiner, Rick, you spoke for 1 minute and 59 seconds on your part of the story. Dawn, you spoke for 1 minute and 38. And I think that was it for table topics. I'm not seeing anything else on my notes. Did I miss anybody?
No, we only had 2 for table topics today.
Okay. For evaluations, for Kelly's speech, that round robin was 7 minutes and 8 seconds, and we said 7 minutes, so that's good. For Dawn, on your evaluation for Doug's speech, that was 3 minutes and 20 seconds. So that would be perfectly fine. If you were in a contest, you'd have that half a minute grace period after 3 minutes. So that works out. On our second round robin was, for Doug's speech, was 4 minutes and 47 seconds. And that concludes my timer report.
Okay, thank you. And our word of the day, I think that was
That
Doug?
was me.
Oh, Rick. All
Yes,
right.
thank you, Dawn.
That's right.
And I'll give the grammarian report along with the counter report. We had the word homorology is not the easiest word to think of, use, but Doug, Gail, Kelly, and Dawn all used it, so congratulations to you. As far as the counter report, Lori, 1 2 ums, 1 false start, 1 so, 4 ands. Doug, 1 1 so, 5 ands, 1 Xerox, and 2 buts, and 1 groan. Gail, we only had 1 false start, 1 and. Kelly, 3 1 1 you know, more than 5 so's, more than 5 ands, and 4 buts. Dawn, 2 ahs, more than 5 ums, 4 false starts, more than 5 ands, 3 xeroxes, repeats. And for myself, I only listed a but that I had there. I really didn't try to pay attention to what I was saying because it doesn't mean much of anything anyway. With that said, Madam General Evaluator.
Thank you, and appreciating everybody's reports. Are there any other reports that we need before we go send it back to our Toastmaster of the day? Thank you, Lori, for keeping me in check today.
My pleasure. Thank you, Dawn, for serving as our general evaluator, and to the entire evaluation team. We've had an excellent meeting today. I see we're wrapping it up mostly on time. And I just thought it would be good to check in with Gail for her to possibly share with us her experience of being in our meeting today.
I really liked it. I thought it was, I liked the round robin evaluations in addition to the official evaluations. I like the table topics. Of course, I've experienced Doug's table topics before. For this time, I didn't have a chance to participate, but I did have something in mind just in case I did. And so I really enjoyed myself at the meeting.
Great. We're so glad you joined us, and you're welcome to come again, and we'd love to have you join the club if you're interested. So just to let you know, in our club, and I guess in a lot of clubs, the 30-second additional time after a speech or a table topic and evaluation, we do that as commonplace, not just for contests. So we always have a grace period after every speech, evaluation, and table topic. And advanced clubs tend to do 7-minute evaluations, where a 3-minute evaluation and a group evaluation. So it's something that we introduced in this club since it's an advanced club, and we value that. I mean, we're getting 7-minute evaluation on a 7-minute speech. It adds a lot of value to hear other people's perspectives. And it's one of the things that adds value for us to be members of this club, or really any advanced club. So anyway, it was wonderful to have you today, and hope you come again.
Thank you.
With that, I'll turn the meeting back over to our acting president, Dawn.
We should all unmute ourselves and clap because we are being prompted by Doug's background. And I'm going to put me on gallery view over here on my side so I can see everyone. We have another great meeting, of course, and I want to encourage everyone to sign up for a role for the next meeting. Our next meeting is August the 12th. And I'm looking at the agenda right now. Do we have anyone who's signed up? We have a speaker signed up right now.
A speaker, right?
Yeah, we have one speaker signed up, Lori. And do we have someone who would like to participate as our Toastmaster? Or
I'll take table topics.
You'll take table topics, Kelly? Okay. And
I could be Toastmaster, I guess. Gail?
Oh, I was going to volunteer for Toastmaster. I don't know if I have it down enough in this particular club.
You can bring it and learn it as you go.
yes.
Okay.
Place to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll do
And
it.
thank you. And we'll have to figure out how to make that work on the agenda.
Gail, if you give me your email in the chat, I will add you, and so then we can, I'll put her in as Toastmaster. Once we add you to our agenda, you need to respond to the free Toast email, and then your name will be in there that we can assign a role to you. okay?
Okay.